I feel that I have a personal mission in life, and that's to increase happiness and decrease misery.
Welcome back to All In. Hey, I'm Rick Jordan, and I have an amazing guest today, Mitzi Perdue. Hi, Mitzi.
Hi, Rick. What a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on. I mean, just your life is incredible. I mean, married to the gentleman who founded Sheraton Hotels, right?
Actually, that was
I have it reversed. I'm sorry. Yes.
Now, my father was president and co-founder of the Sheraton hotel chain. And it was my late husband, my beloved hero, who was the chicken man, Frank Perdue.
That's incredible. I love that. And now you've had such this amazing breadth of experience because of those who have been around your life and lifted you up. And now you've really taken on the cause of human trafficking, right?
Oh, totally right. I expect to spend the rest of my days doing everything I possibly can to combat it. And there's some really cool things that are coming up that, you know, it would relate to your professional background.
That's exciting. Tell me about Win This Fight.
All right, Win This Fight. Where do I even start? But let's start with the name. My interest in human trafficking is I raise money for other anti-trafficking organizations, and I also raise awareness. And the original way for doing this was to have a very high value auction where ultra high net worth people would give donations to but of physical property like jewelry or paintings, or how about yachts and jet airplanes? There would be an auction that would convert tangible property into cash that people could give to the anti-trafficking organization of their choice. And the purpose of that is it raises awareness because the gifts that have come in are just spectacular. I mean, PBS has already done a special on it. But the gifts raise a lot of money, but they also raise a lot of awareness.
Sure.
So that's, but to start with the name was originally the Global Anti-Trafficking Auction. A guy called me up. He's a neuromarketer. His background is neuroscience. And this guy called up and he said, you know, Mitzi, that name absolutely sucks. And I'm thinking, what?
Don't you love the honesty of marketers? It's great.
Well, actually, Frank Perdue absolutely cherished when people would tell him what was wrong because you can do something about it. Yeah. Well, in this case, I could do something about it. I said, what's wrong? And he said, you can't remember it, doesn't roll off the tongue, and there's no call for action. And he said that he had looked up on, GoDaddy or something and found the name Win This Fight. And he said, what's good about it is there's a call to action. It's memorable. But best of all, the initials of Win This Fight are WTF.
Yeah, that's great.
And he said, you have to have some wrongness if you're going to be memorable. So when I invite people to text WTF to 51555, the keyword's not hard to remember, the WTF.
I love that. I love what he said, too, that you have to have a bit of a wrongness in order to be remembered. That's incredible.
It's so true. There's so many studies on this. I mean, I'm not going to get political, but just consider tweets that everybody talks about.
Yeah.
The ones that they talk about will have a date wrong, a name wrong, a piece of grammar wrong. That's incredibly deliberate because neuroscientists know that you have to have some wrongness if people are going to talk about it all day long.
That's fantastic. And there's a lot that's wrong about human trafficking. So, I mean, everything just goes right into that, you know. And
yes.
It really grips my heart. I remember when my kids were born and just not even, because I have twins who are my oldest, boy and a girl, and they're 13 now. And, but
that's terrible.
That's terrible.
I mean, that's terrible from the point of view of caring about human trafficking, because that's right in the center of what a trafficker would like.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. At first, I thought you said or you meant it was terrible because they're 13 and they're teenagers now.
No,
I
it's
think that's
terrible
wonderful. Yeah,
no, it's divine to be a parent of. I
yeah,
mean, that's the best thing in my life, my children and grandchildren.
no doubt. But you're right. I mean, that age, that's just they're vulnerable. They're the size of adults at this point, and just if we're going to inject a little wrongness, they have all the right things going for them at this age, in order to just entice somebody who's not right in the head. And I'm very crass when it comes to this because I don't see traffickers as being human beings anymore. You know, because it's the part of what they do and how they do it and how they exact their influence over other people is something that completely separates them out of the human race from my perspective. You know, so it's almost.
I write a weekly blog, and I've written at least 100 of them so far. And one of the topics that I often bring up is I'll interview a psychiatrist or a professor of psychology to find out, why do people do this? And you might be interested in an answer I heard recently.
Please.
All right, this comes from two sources. One is, his name's Dr. Robert Cancro. He used to be head of the Department of Psychiatry, New York University Medical School. And he said, you might think that somebody who's going after a 10-year-old girl or boy, you might think that they're just wildly oversexed. He said, sex has just the tiniest bit to do with it.
Yeah.
What it's really about is a sick desire to dominate and control.
You got it.
And so how did they get that way? And over again, it happens that their first sexual experience, they're going to replicate it. From, something that happened in their past means that they're kind of frozen, like they've still got a 10-year-old mindset. And okay, I can't swear that this is true, but I can swear that knowledgeable people told me that a lot of the cases of men who are pedophiles, that they're replicating the point at which their emotional growth stopped.
Interesting. So I wonder if that's, do you think that was by choice at that point or from a traumatic experience from what you were told?
I'm going to go with a traumatic experience.
Yeah, that's intriguing. That's intriguing.
And, I think we can stipulate that that's not the case for every individual, but that seems to be what pushes people over into this craziness. It's arrested development where they just didn't grow beyond that. And the person who has, I think I can use the word illness, who has this illness, they don't choose to be that way, but the growth stopped. The rest of us tend to like people our own age that we can relate to and have emotional closeness to. But if your growth stopped at age 10 because of a traumatic experience, I don't think it's a choice for the pedophile to keep doing it. I think they've got unconscious forces that are pushing them that way.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I've seen in my background in intelligence training, I've seen that side of it for sure, and I've also seen the other side to where it's become a choice. And just purely empirical evidence. That's it. I'm not a psychiatrist or anything, but it's just observation. And I'm with you because there are those that I've seen that it's like they're frozen in time, in their developments. And for them, we can try to get them help, but at the same time, it's like, you almost have to separate them from society while they're receiving that help too, and that way there's no danger to anybody that's around them or anyone else. But then there's also those who have gone through that then I've seen make a conscious choice to continue because you're in the business of raising capital for the organizations that fight this. Child trafficking in a nutshell is also a business.
Well, now we come to the second part of what I'm doing, which is there was going to be this fantastic auction. It's been put off at least for a year, possibly 2 years. But it had the potential of raising $100 million. Like just one gift that came in, this was from a Taiwan jeweler, a 69-carat perfect ruby that belonged to a Qing dynasty emperor. it in a good year, it might bring $60 million. So, and PBS has done a story about some of these gifts. However, because of COVID-19, the auction is put off because, the economy is uncertain enough so that you're not going to bid up the super high prices that we had hoped for. So we're doing something instead. And by the way, this circles right back to your expertise. and it's the following. There's a group, it's called the International Fraud Group. I believe they represent 47 different countries, and they have the ability to, or what they do professionally is they can track money flows. And supposing that you're a trafficker, you're not going to get by and barter. No, you have to have financial institutions where you put this money. And with $150 billion, which is what the UN says, that's how much money is involved in trafficking.
Yeah.
What these people have the capability of doing is they've got dark web capabilities, artificial intelligence capabilities, covert action capabilities, immense knowledge of law and accounting, and they can simply trace money. And what they do once they've found a bank account where the money comes from traffickers, they have the ability to freeze it because no bank wants to be caught with illegal money. It's a reputational risk or a fine risk, or they could even be put out of business. Then the largest anti-trafficking organization in the United States is very interested in this approach, but they don't have the reach that the International Fraud Group does. You put the two together, and potentially we could go after the biggest reason that the traffickers do it, and that is money. We could freeze their bank accounts and make it uneconomic to do it. Cool?
That is super cool. There's a concept that I always put out there is that money is nothing more than a tool. And
say that again, please.
Money is nothing more than a tool. It's something that it allows you to achieve a certain outcome. Whether that's just options in your life or whether that's to advance your cause, whether that's to impact other lives in a positive or a negative way, it's nothing but a tool. So people that search after that, of course, there's the traffickers that are they think that that's the be all and end all. But I love the International Fraud Group that you're explaining because they're literally using money as a tool to stop the spread of this situation. It's fantastic. And then you're raising capital in order to do the same thing. I love it.
Okay, but I should quickly point out that what I just described of seizing the bank accounts and freezing the bank accounts of the traffickers, it's being explored between one of the largest financial institutions in the world and one of the largest anti-trafficking organizations in the world, and then the International Fraud Group. They aren't doing it yet. But the proof of concept is the following. Somewhere around 15 years ago, one of the largest software manufacturers was up against a problem that's very like what we have with traffickers, which is if you're a software pirate, if you have counterfeit software, you can sell it for like $200 and the discs cost you 9 cents. The profits were just insane. So the large software manufacturer was trying to stop this because they were losing tens of millions of dollars to pirates. And what they were up against is kind of what we're up against right now, which is you shut one down and another pops up. It was whack-a-mole until the International Fraud Group went to the large software company and said, you're doing it wrong. Instead of putting the counterfeiters in jail, instead, let's just make it unprofitable for them. We'll seize their bank accounts, and we know how to do it. In a rather short time, they made it simply uneconomic to be a software counterfeiter because it's not that they were going to end up in jail. I mean, they might, but the real thing is the software company would get the money that the counterfeiters had collected. So just hypothetically, you're a software counterfeiter, you've got $1 million in the bank, and that's frozen, and the money goes back to the software company. You've put in all this work and you haven't gotten a penny. And then from the software maker's point of view, they were getting back $20 to $30 for every dollar that they invested in shutting down the counterfeiters. Well, so what if, you might wonder, why hasn't this been done already to counteract traffickers? And the answer is, the people who have this expertise, generally they can't do it as a volunteer because they've got mortgages and kids' colleges to pay. Somebody has to raise somewhere around $10 million to fund them to do this. And that's what I'm interested in doing right now, finding money to fund the efforts that I've just described. And I think it's going to happen. I'm not quite sure how yet, but the pieces are falling in place because three of the major players, each of which has something like the largest anti-trafficking organization. I think it's the largest in the United States. I mean, maybe it's second or third, but it has spectacular amounts of data. The International Fraud Group needs data to make it all work. The largest financial institution that has a passion for doing something about human trafficking. Now, you put all those three pieces together, and we're actually working right now to see how they can work together. But as far as I can tell, they're all excited about it and they all see the potential.
That's fantastic. There's so much that just gets me excited about what you're saying, about the methods that they're using, because they're using technology, they're using money to stop this. It's a business in and of itself. Now, was there anything that you learned from your father and your late husband that helped you apply to what you're doing right now?
Yeah. All right. Here's something that I learned from my father. And to refresh people's memories, he was the co-founder and president of the Sheraton hotel chain, and went from no employees to 20,000 at the time of his death. And I'm forever asking him how he did this, and as a child. And we're talking the 1930s when he was growing the company. He died in 1967, and we sold the company then. But things that I learned from him, he said that he would try a 1 in 100 chance if there was a big enough payoff, while he felt that his competitors might stop at a 1 in 20 chance or a 1 in 40 chance. So he was very much about taking long shots. And I think of what I'm doing right now. Darned if it isn't a long shot. I mean, the idea that I'm 79, that one 79-year-old person sitting in a small town in Maryland could pull this off is, how about small? But the payoff is so enormous that I'm ready to spend the rest of my life working on it.
That's awesome. You're inspiring me today, because it is that, right? And it's one part I heard, or one quote about entrepreneurs that I heard one time is that it's, everyone else will try to find 100 reasons to not do something. Right. And then it's the entrepreneur or the person that really is a visionary that will just look for that one single reason why it could work, that long shot. And I love that, because it's the long shots are not necessarily worth it, right? Unless there's a big payoff. So, well,
I mean, I'm pretty sure that my father had in mind really big payoffs.
Of course.
But the proof is in the pudding. He started with one hotel, ended with 400. Playing the long shots, if the payoff is big enough, go for it.
All in. You got it. That's awesome. I love that. I'm
as all in as can be, because I'm way, 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 way out on a limb on this, and there's no guarantees of success. But the way I frame it to myself is, there are no guarantees of success, but I can give you an awfully big guarantee of failure, and that's not to try.
How did you get involved in this? Was there one pivotal point in your life to where you said, you know what, I need to do something about this. I need to step up against trafficking?
April 11th of 2019,
I had
2
a
o'clock.
thought there might be something. Yes, that specific.
It was that specific. I bet that there are a lot in our audience who were like where I was 2 years ago. And that was the word human trafficking. It didn't really have any meaning to me. It just sort of glides by and floats away. But then I heard this lecture, and it was accompanied by videos, and it showed a group of 12-year-old girls who, they were being videoed because this was part of a rescue operation, and they were videoed before they were rescued. And I could not unsee what I saw in the faces of these little girls, terror, fear, just kind of a frozen agony. And I couldn't unsee that. And I learned that these little girls, that they were forced to have sex with strangers, typically 12 times a night, it might be 20 times a night, and that their life expectancy was less than 7 years because they were going to die of an overdose or suicide or disease or organ harvesting. And I thought, this is the most evil thing in the world. I want to spend the rest of my life doing anything that I possibly can to help fight this. But then I'm thinking to myself, I don't have any experience in rescue or rehabilitation. There's no way that I could provide services myself. It's not my skill set or my personality. But I do have a background in media. And I began talking with heads of different anti-trafficking organizations. And by the way, there are a lot of them. The UN recognizes at least 2,000. Well, so I'm talking with anti-trafficking organization personnel, finding out what they need. And how about every single person I talked with, and I bet I've done articles on more than 100 so far, every single one of them needs money and awareness. And I thought, well, by having an anti-trafficking auction where people could convert high-value items into cash, I could do a lot to raise awareness and a lot to raise cash for other organizations. And that's what I've been doing.
That's awesome. You took what you knew already, and then you just transposed that skill set into a completely new area that has a huge impact on human lives. I love that. Thank you for doing that, Mitzi. That's incredible. It's the same as me, really, because I take what I know in cybersecurity and we're applying it towards something that saves human lives. That's why we're put on this earth, right? Is to help and save other people.
I feel that I have a personal mission in life, and that's to increase happiness and decrease misery. And boy, does human trafficking fit in that.
For sure it does. For sure it does.
We're into something else, which I'd love to show you.
Please.
What you're about to see is a red bandana with polka dots and a bow. And this comes from one of the volunteers for Win This Fight. We have approximately 500 of them. And the number of brilliant ideas that people have to help with anti-trafficking is just spectacular. I feel that Win This Fight sort of unleashes a lot of energy and thoughts as well as money and awareness. Now, the thing that I'm wearing, one of Margot Dusterhouse, who's one of the volunteers who thought of this, she said, Rosie the Riveter, somewhere around 75 years ago, she left her home, went into a factory, and arranged by women coming out of their homes and into the factories. That meant that a lot of men were free to fight the battle against Nazism. And so what Margot suggested is, let's have a 21st century version of Rosie the Riveter, but it will be Rosie the Liberator. And we're asking people they don't have to have the bandana, but we do want them to strike a Rosie pose. And what Rosie did is, she's kind of looking towards her fists and she makes a muscle. And we're inviting people to take selfies of themselves. And I don't want people to spend a lot of time on it. Just, snap one. And I don't care what the background is. But the cool thing is people have been posting it to social media. And then if you're part of the Rosie the Liberator, or it could also be Rusty the Liberator, because we want guys in this. The cool thing is we ask people to invite 2 other people to do it. And we also invite people to give $5 to the anti-trafficking organization of their choice. And this has only been started like, I don't know, a week ago, and already thousands of dollars have been flowing in. And just for the success of it, oh my Lord. One guy heard about this and he said, you've asked for 2. I don't think I heard you right. I think you said 21. And he's working on getting 21 people to do it.
That's great. It's fun how that can just spider out like that as it catches on too.
Yeah, it starts with one person having an idea and other people liking it. And I don't know if this will happen or not, but I wrote a pitch letter to NBC and Good Morning America. I forget which is which, but I've heard back from them. And I know that talking about Rosie the Liberator is being considered by them. Whether they'll actually do it or not, I don't know. But this is, again, on taking a long shot. It's a really long shot to get on national television. But why not ask? And at this moment, we don't know what will happen.
You got it. And the payoff is huge, too.
The payoff is inconceivably big. But if it's not this year, I'm a patient person. Maybe it'll be next year. Yeah,
no doubt. No doubt. So you've started into this venture. It's been about 2 years now, almost 2 years, right? From that, along the way, what have been some of your biggest failures that you've had?
Oh, biggest failure without doubt is the anti-trafficking auction was supposed to take place just about now. But with COVID-19, the auction house suggested, they didn't suggest, they stated that this just wasn't a good time to try to get maximum amount of money for the donations to come in. And by the way, the donors keep the items until 2 months before the auction. So if everybody who's made a donation still gets to keep their stuff. But yeah, that was very disheartening because in theory, by now, we might have $100 million to give to anti-trafficking organizations.
Yeah, I know that's the biggest pitfall.
That's a heartache. But all right, this is another philosophy that's taken me through life. One door shuts, 2 open. So when the anti-trafficking auction had to be put on ice, and I'm as discouraged as a person can be. And then I started thinking, well, what else is there? And it was at that point that I heard of the International Fraud Group. And I'm a public speaker, and I got invited to speak to the International Fraud Group. And I got to know some of the members of it. And they would love to fight trafficking. It's just that they can't do it for free. But they would love to use their skills and expertise. And if we can raise the money to pay for them, I think it will do more good than any auction ever would have. So, boy, a great big door opened.
That's exciting. Yeah, it did, for sure. There's a phrase that I saw that was floating around with your name called an invisible mentor.
Would you say that again?
Yeah, there was a phrase that I don't know if this is something that you've been labeled, but an invisible mentor, specifically to aspiring businesswomen. And I know you've looked through a lot. I'm not really shifting gears, but I love how you taking business, because there's a greater cause that I have in what I do, even in cybersecurity, and you've taken business. And I feel that women especially have this about them to where they can have a greater mission, and they're always very much so mission-minded. Women are, and it's amazing. But you took business and then shifted it over into this incredible cause. What advice do you have to other women who have this just big dream to help other people?
Well, the biggest advice is just go for it. I have a motto that I recommend to everybody, and it goes like this: ready, fire, aim. and yes, I did deliberately get that back. To me, there are 2 things that hold everybody back. And I've lived through it myself. And one is fear of failure, and the other is fear of pulling the trigger, figuratively speaking. The fear of failure. Let me share a story about my own career. I have a Harvard degree. I also have a master's in public administration. But by somewhere around age 34, I realized I'm not doing a whole lot with my life. I'd always wanted a career in communications, but I'd never had an audition. I'd never even asked for an audition. I wanted to be a writer. I hadn't submitted stuff. And one day I realized that what was holding me back was just terror of getting the rejection slips or being told, hey, you're not good enough. But then it occurred to me that I needed to redefine failure. And my life exploded in positive things once I defined failure as not trying. That every time that I got a rejection slip or failed an audition, I have the attitude, I'm a winner because I tried. And that the one way to guarantee failure is not to try. But the reason that I'm ready to say that any time that I tried for something, even if by other standards I failed, I didn't get exactly what I was after, along the way, by giving it my all and trying with everything I've got, I met people, I took courses, I read books, I prepared myself so that I was farther along the road to success. I developed my skill set. And so, advice for women, try, give it your all, do everything that you can. Not only the self-talk of I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, although I recommend that, but also take action. I don't know, I can't jump into the minds of each listener or viewer, but I can make a guess that a lot of people have dreams and don't get held back by fear of failure, but also in the process of trying to achieve that dream, just expect that you're going to get the turn downs and hitting a brick wall. I mean, that's paying your dues. There are very few things that just drop in your lap. So don't get discouraged by what other people might call failure. Redefine it. As long as you've tried, you're a winner. And then I mentioned about like figuratively pulling the trigger. I'm totally in favor of the self-talk of I can do it. But darn it, you have to actually do it. Go out there and act, execute.
I love that. There's shifting back to the trafficking, because my brain was going to the auctions are for high net worth individuals, right? Because they're extremely valuable objects that you're auctioning off. And that's amazing because you go where the money is, and that's where what the traffickers do too, right? They go where the money is. That's what drives them. From a person who might not be as high net worth and can jump in on an auction like this, what can the masses do to help get involved?
Okay, it's a two-part plan. The first part was the very high value auction. And I think I already mentioned the 69 karat ruby.
Oh, yeah. I want that.
Right, yes. I hope you'll ask me sometime how I happened to get a 69 karat ruby and what it looks like.
Tell me.
Well, I'm having this terrible feeling that I'm so enthusiastic that I keep running down different rabbit holes.
It's okay. You're in good company. I'm the same way.
Thank you. But to answer the first question of since not everybody has a 69 karat ruby to donate, what about the rest of us? And it's a two-part plan. The first one is the ultra high value auction. And the auction house, by the way, is so enthusiastic about this that they agreed to forgo their 20% commission. So if you have $1 million necklace, you get to give $1 million to the recipient. But then what about the rest of us? Well, my hope was that the anti-trafficking auction, the high net worth one, the high value one, would get so much global attention that when we have the auction for the rest of us, this will be hopefully through like eBay and auction houses online auction houses throughout the world. It would be maybe half a year or even a year afterwards. But I would love for absolutely everybody, to be both a seller and a buyer. And on a given day, you put up your, I don't know, grandma's embroidery or candlesticks or whatever, and you say where you want that money to go. And maybe it's $50, maybe it's $1,000. Actually, I don't even care. I just want you to be involved. But that's 2 to 3 years out. However, that's the plan for the auction. But I can't tell you how eager I am to get volunteers. If somebody wants to volunteer, I'll make a commitment. And get your smartphone out, because I'm going to give you a text message and a number, a key number for it to go to.
Awesome. I'm going to do it right now. What is that text?
Okay.
Is it WTF?
Text, exactly. Yes. WTF. And I'm so happy that it's memorable, because it doesn't take that much work to remember WTF. The harder part is the number 51555. I hope it's working.
Texting right now. WTF to 51555 immediately. Thank you for joining the fight, an insider's perspective of human trafficking. View www.winthisfight.org. All right. Do I get updates now with everything you're doing? Awesome.
Oh, I'm just so pleased, because I'll tell you, the commitment that I make to anybody who chooses to volunteer is I will do my absolute utmost to give you responsibilities that match your interests and the amount of time that you have. And I'll never ask you for more time than what you want to give. But here's what happens. When you get involved in this and you find that, that there are people who just cherish what your skills are, you'll find that the time just flows by, and that you kind of regret that there aren't more hours in the day to help. And hours in the day might mean 5 minutes once a week. But my commitment is I won't ask you for more time than you want to give. And you'll have the satisfaction of having your skills used to support, how about one of the most meaningful things in the world, and that is helping avoid suffering, playing a role in something that the whole world should unite around. It's the wrongness of a 12-year-old girl or boy being raped 10 times a night. I mean, that's just, it's got to stop. And we can be part of stopping it.
We sure can. I think everybody can get behind that. And it's www.winthisfight.org. And
if somebody wants to get hold of me, there's a contact form on winthisfight.org. And I make a commitment to answer anybody who writes to me. But it's also a place where you can volunteer. And, whether you've got 5 minutes, that one of the best ones that has come out just by, I get kind of superstitious. You put ideas out in the universe, and it's just astonishing to me what comes back. That there's a woman who had a 30-year career fighting human trafficking. She retired, and she felt, like half a year into her retirement, she felt, I still want to help. I still want to be in the game. I still want to serve. And she contacted me, and the skills and the contacts she has are just unbelievable. So, but trust me, I'm not asking everybody to be like her. I'm utterly happy with the person whose complete contribution is that she reads my blog or he reads my blog. And I want the largest number of blog readers possible, partly because I think they'll find the information really, really interesting, but partly when I go call on, and I'm being hypothetical here or aspirational, but supposing I'm calling on Jeff Bezos and I can tell him, hey, 1 million people read my blog, he has to pay attention to me. And maybe that's the way I get the 10 million that will fund the anti-trafficking efforts of attacking the finances of the traffickers.
That's where we have to start, is with the finances, but everyone else can get involved just by bringing awareness, by reading your blog, by donating time. If they don't have a 69-carat ruby laying around, that's what they can do.
I still love you, even if you don't have a 69-carat ruby.
That's great. I would love to see that thing in person.
Let me tell you what it's like.
Please.
All right. In 2019, I was spending full time, how about traveling the world, getting just unbelievable donations. And because if you're an ultra high net worth person, and I'm personally aware of a list of 750 billionaires, if you're an ultra high net worth person, the odds are that you've got some pretty amazing artwork or jewelry or historical items that are in storage. It just happens, and I've seen it. Well, I was in Taiwan, and I met a man who's a jeweler. And he invited me to come to his house for tea, and he knew perfectly well what I was there for. And I'm sitting in the second floor of his home, and it's a tea room. And we're talking about this and that. And then he tells me, "You're a very, very smart, intelligent guy." He said, "You're aware that this is the second largest source of income for organized crime. That they probably have your name. I mean, you might get killed. What do you think about that?" And I answered something, just without thinking about it. I just opened my mouth and this came out. I said, "I'm 78 years old. I believe in this cause. I don't care." Well, at that point, this elderly man, he got up, and behind his chair was sort of like a curtain. And he pulls the curtain and there's a safe. And he, manipulates the safe, opens it, and scoops out this great big thing that it's somewhere between the size of a golf ball and maybe a little smaller, maybe an egg. But it's a ruby. And he hands it to me and he says, "This is yours." And I'll give you a clue of the size of it. Do you see the ring that I'm wearing? All right, that's 5 carats. Can you imagine 69.7 carats? It's just unthinkable.
Oh, goodness. Wow.
But on top
Not
of
really.
that, just a ruby that size, there aren't very many of them in the world, but then it has a history. This man had inherited it because, as far as I can tell, his family way back were the hereditary curators of the Qing dynasty jewels. And so the ruby that's, 6 times the size of, help me do that, 60 times? Well, anyway, the one that's 70 carats almost versus 5, he said that it belonged to a Qing dynasty emperor. It's probably 300 years old. And to the naked eye, I didn't have a jeweler's loupe with me, but it was perfect. And he said, from the way it's cut, we know that it's probably 300 years old. And so just the history of this thing means that the history of it alone would make it fantastically valuable. But then you add that it's one of the rarer perfect rubies in the world. It's just unthinkable how much
incredible.
It's worth.
It's amazing how things just start to intersect in life that just make you know that you're on the right path, right?
Yeah, some of the other gifts, sticking with jewelry, there's one of the larger perfect emeralds, and it was recovered from the treasure ship Atocha, which sank in 1622, and it was meant for the Queen of Spain. That's a donation. It's another one. There are 2 brothers who inherited 12 dinner plates that belonged to Tsar Alexander II, made in 1822. And they're historic as all get out because he was the Tsar liberator. He's the one who freed the Russian slaves. I think they're called serfs. There are 14 of them that we know of in the world. 2 are in museums in Russia. These guys have 12 perfect plates from back then. And we already know that there's a Russian oligarch that wants to buy them because he believes in cultural repatriation. So when they're put up from auction, there's somebody who's going to bid a lot to get them.
Yeah, for sure. For people that want to get involved with this, how can they donate items or gifts to the cause? Is that your website and a contact form, or how do they go about that?
Yeah, they can do it. But since the auction is, the first auction, I don't think it will happen before in a year and a half from now, and it could be 2 years. So, I mean, if they've got something that they'd like to donate, if it's ultra high value, I'd love to know about it. If it's for the rest of us items, I'd love to know about that too. But that could easily be 3 years off.
Sure. So that even though it's a little while
I'd
off,
love to know about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a curating time period right now, right? Because the auction's been pushed off. So if there's another almost 70 carat ruby sitting out there, which I'm sure somebody has something, but even if it's $1 million item or a $10 million item, that's something.
Well, actually, the $1 million is the range that that I've got most of.
Perfect.
I, of course, mentioned to you the most interesting and amazing ones.
Well, of course, everybody wants to hear about that one. Yeah.
Well, there's a guy in Argentina who, before COVID-19 struck, he has a yacht, a great big yacht that he can't sell in Argentina because they are having all these financial difficulties. And so he thought the highest and best use for it would be to have it auctioned.
That's exciting.
There's a guy in the United States with a hotel, and I believe he's in his 80s. He doesn't have any heirs. He wants to do something about human trafficking. So, there might even be a hotel put up for auction.
That's exciting. Awesome. So around the $1 million mark is what most of the items are that you receive, correct?
Yeah. And below that, we love them and we want them, but they won't be part of the ultra high net worth auction because we have to limit it to 100 items because it just gets cumbersome beyond that. And by the way, I could deal with cumbersome, but I think we're talking about things like catalogs and time that the auction takes and so on.
That's awesome. Well, Mitzi, thank you so much for talking with me today. I want to spread the word as much as you on this, and we're both attacking this in ways that we can contribute, and that's how everybody else needs to look at it too.
That's just the beautiful thing, because whatever your skill or interest is, we've got room for you. Maybe you're a great typist, maybe you're a great researcher. We will find a wonderful use for you if you will just go to winthisfight.org, or if you'll text WTF, and yes, I know what it sounds like or is, type WTF to 51555.
That's it, folks. WTF to 51555. Mitzi Perdue, you're amazing. You're just beautiful as all anything, and I appreciate you being on today. Thank you.
What a privilege to be on. Thank you so much.
What's shaking? Thank you for joining me on the All In Podcast. Click the subscribe button and smash that bell for notifications. Text me, 312-535-8520. Follow me on social media at Mr. Rick Jordan. See you next episode. I am Rick Jordan, and I approve this message.